Ken, that was a desperate St. Louis Blues team that you knew was going to come and bring their best, and the Winnipeg Jets just were not able to handle that right out of the gate last night for a game that was all but decided really after 20 minutes.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously the first period, one of the worst the Jets have had in a long time. And, the Blues, we spent a lot of time in the first two games talking about the great atmosphere, and it was great. The whiteout atmosphere was tremendous, Huss. But this is a St. Louis fan base that has not had a playoff game since getting bounced by the Colorado Avalanche in 2022. So they were fairly jazzed as well, and they gave them reason to be out of their seats and chanting "Let's go Blues" 48 seconds in, 3:11 in, and one more time before the period was out at 15:51. Blues best players were tremendous. Jets didn't seem to really have much of an answer, but overall, this is what happens. I mean, if folks thought it was going to be a clean sweep, 16-0 to the Stanley Cup final, I mean, wake-up calls were required, and the Jets were the ones getting the wake-up call yesterday. But again, we've been around this business for a long time, Andrew. It was not a must-win for the Blues because you only get must-wins when your season is on the line, but it was a got-to-have-it situation.
Pretty damn close.
It was a got-to-have-it situation for the Blues. Falling behind 3-0, they knew was not a good recipe for survival out of round one. Just ask the Ottawa Senators, who are in that spot after this morning when they woke up and the clouds were kind of ominous in the nation's capital. But yeah, I mean, the Jets weren't good enough. I mean, they missed Dylan DeMello. We get it. Cole Perfetti's shot is in the net, but you can't prove it. Zapruder film, whatever you want to have. And again, Sean and I were sitting on the same row. I said immediately, it's a goal. It's in. I saw Perfetti point.
Perfetti said the same thing.
But at the same time, as we saw clip after clip, Sean was certain they weren't going to overturn it. And, I'm looking at the one where the puck is on its edge. There's clearly white ice there, but guess what, Huss? And for everyone who doesn't believe it, there is no view of the goal line on the angle where the puck is on its edge and obviously in. So without the puck sensor technology, that goal can't be counted unless the referee closest to the play points as a goal and not waving and says he made the great save. So, for the folks saying that that's the reason the Jets lost, it's not. The reason the Jets, there it is. I mean, for those watching, that puck is on its edge. It's got to be in based on where his glove is, but you can't see. You can see the post in that view right there, Huss. You cannot see how far the goal line extends. And here's the other part. The easy way to solve this: go to the NFL method. You don't have to cross the goal line. If the football noses the goal line, it's a goal. If you want to go to that formula, by all means, that's a goal. But until the technology changes or the rule changes, that can't be counted. The reason the Jets lost is because they gave up 3 goals in the first. They gave up 3 power play goals, and they got one of their own in garbage time, but are trailing the special teams battle to the tune of -4, which only enhances the difficulty for you and the pressure you put on yourself for 5-on-5 scoring, which is increasingly difficult in itself without having the third and fourth leading scorers on the team not being in the lineup, right? I mean, these are facts, Huss.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I mean, the special teams is an issue right now. I mean, you'd like to get more out of your power play, but the biggest concern is probably the PK. Listen, Luke Schenn had a really rough night. He was in the penalty box 3 times. He got blown up on the 5th goal, the turnover.
Baxa, yeah.
I have no doubt that he'll be able to move on from that. I mean, probably better that happened to him than almost anybody else on the blue line because of the veteran nature and the experience that Luke Schenn has. But again, it was, you give up that early goal and then take a penalty right away. You certainly are serving up the opportunity on a platter for St. Louis, and they went and took it. And I thought Buchnevich was noticeable at times, I guess, in the first couple games, Ken. But he had Nichushkin 24 vibes last night, the way he took that game over early on. And, I mean, just thoughts in the building, seeing it live. I mean, the kick into the net and being able to touch the puck just enough to not have it be a kicked-in goal was absolutely brilliant. And again, listen, Hellebuyck wasn't great. He obviously had that big gap that hurt them later on. But I have a hard time giving him much heat for either of those two early goals. It was just absolute brilliant plays by Buchnevich to get his team on the board and stake them to the great start that they really needed.
Hey, game one, Scheifele, Connor connected twice for GWGs. The fact that Buchnevich, a top-line winger, had his first career hat trick and had a 4-pointer, and Cam Fowler had a goal and 5 points, and Robert Thomas had 4 assists. Hey, this is what big game players do. Buchnevich doesn't do it in the same manner as Nichushkin. Obviously, he had the same impact. He's not the same kind of power forward, but he's skilled. And to your point, yes, he had 2 power play assists in the first 2 games. He also only had 1 shot on goal. So when you're a top-line player, you get leaned on in those situations. Jets stars elevated in games 1 and 2. In game 3, it was clearly a Blues stars, handling the proceedings. And Fowler's a great example. One thing the Blues did not do well in the first 2 games, they pulled a Jets meme on them. They got their defense involved. Fowler's third goal is a great example. Pionk kind of makes a tough read in the neutral zone. Fowler joins late, buries his shot. I mean, Fowler had a Morrissey-esque game, That's what we saw.
5 points.
Driving. He was driving the offense from the back end. Josh's partner, Colton Parayko, easily his best game of the series, moving well, hitting everything that moved, using his reach against the Scheifele line. He was a dominant force. It looked like the Four Nations with him and Parayko on the ice as partners, with Morrissey I'm talking about. So, hey, punch, counter punch. Now it's the Jets' turn to see what they're going to do. I know a lot's been made about adjustments. And again, adjustments were made by the Blues that they took advantage of. They got to the middle of the ice. The place the Jets protect best, the place they protected best in the third period, in game 1 where they gave up 2 shots, in game 2 where they gave up 5 shots total. It was a free-for-all for the Blues in that game. Now, free parking. It was a Monopoly special. They went to the free parking, they picked up every cent that was involved, and they kept picking up the money on their way around the board, right? That's what it was. On the power play, Kyrou. The Red Sea parted for Kyrou, and he went bar down. That we don't see happening with the Jets very often. So anyways, I mean, I understand the sky is falling people, and I also understand the PTSD people, because that's their recent memory. But if we're looking at the grand scheme of history, the last time, one of the last times the Jets got their asses kicked in game 3 was against the Minnesota Wild in the first round of the 2018 playoffs. I know you remember what happened in game 4 and 5.
I certainly do. Goose eggs from Connor Hellebuyck in back-to-back games.
And I'm not saying he needs goose eggs, but let's put this to bed before the wildfire makes its way down the prairie. Connor Hellebuyck needs to be better. No one's blaming him. He's not giving up a ton of muffins every game. He's simply not. But what he isn't doing is playing to the level he played at in the regular season. Very small sample size. 3 games. I would caution against making rash judgments on 3 playoff games. But the facts remain. Connor Hellebuyck has given up 10 goals. His goals against is .354, and his save percentage is .854. So when you're talking about an MVP caliber player, he needs to elevate. He has another level he can reach. He will reach it, or he'll need to reach it before the series is over if the Jets want to advance. That's not to say Connor Hellebuyck needs to heap his team on his shoulders and carry them by himself to the promised land. Jets haven't operated that way all year. Why would you start now? I don't think Hellebuyck needs to put any additional pressure on himself. What he does need to do is make a few more saves when the game is on the line, like the one he made in game 1 off Jordan Kyrou. That is the Connor Hellebuyck we have come to see. And again, I understand people going wild about narratives. You got to look at the whole picture. You can't just look at the last 2 playoffs, though those playoffs were not pretty in terms of the numbers. Hellebuyck needs to be better. His team can be better in front of him. They were nowhere near their template or structure in game 3. They all need to improve in order to get better. But Hellebuyck's a part of that. We can't just say, you're great, you're an MVP, when it's going great. He also has to share some of the responsibility when things are not going well. And things are going well for the Jets. They're up 2-1 in a playoff series. You know what's hard to do in the playoffs? Win playoff games. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights. They are a legit Stanley Cup contender, like the Jets are. They're down 2-1 against the Minnesota Wild. So it's hard to win in the playoffs. Look at Ottawa. Ottawa's had 2 crazy rallies and are on the verge of elimination against one of the other Stanley Cup favorites, right? So winning is hard in the playoffs. The Jets have shown all year long that they're a resilient group. They've got great resolve. Now it's up to them. Spend the 2 days digging in, recharge the batteries, and, if they get a split on the road, they're on the brink of knocking out the Blues out of the playoffs. If they don't, it's 2-2, and now you better buckle up, because now the ride may be a little more turbulent. But even if it comes to that, Huss, 2-2 is not a terrible place to be in a series against a team that played as well as the Blues did since Four Nations. And Huss, we talk about home ice advantage. The Jets have done a great job with it all year long. St. Louis has not lost a home game since the Jets went into their house in the first game after Four Nations on February 22nd. And in order to beat them, Huss, they needed a last-minute goal with the net empty and a shootout winner. So people that are surprised that the Blues found a level of urgency, you got to pay attention, folks. This is a good hockey team. This is not a typical 1 versus 8 scenario where you expect it to be get the brooms out. Thanks for coming out. Good effort, but you don't have what it takes. This is a good hockey team, but the Jets are also a great hockey team. So now you've been punched in the face. You should go back swinging, but be careful of the swing and don't overdo it. Huss, one of the other things for me in the game, of course, if you're the Jets fan, you love the way they regrouped and responded physically. The Jets out-hit them in the game, but the Jets are a skilled team that can play a big, heavy game. They're not a run you out of the rink to win hockey games team either. So although the pushback is welcome, don't go running around for hits and stray from your game just because you have to show the other opponent that you're not going to back down. And again, I'm not saying that's what they did, but I did see them kind of get away from what has made them successful in the first 2 games.
Well, I think that was honestly a big part of the, just the score and the game kind of being, that's when the frustration comes out. Like I mentioned, yesterday, I guess, just how impressed I was in both of the teams in game number 2, Ken, that with all of the hits that were doled out, it was all done between the whistles. There wasn't a lot of extracurriculars because no one wanted to take a penalty in an ultra close game. Whereas the minute, you get to a 3-goal game in the third period, guys' level of discipline, I think, goes out the window, and they're almost thinking ahead to game 4. Just on Hellebuyck for a minute.
Sure.
And listen, I don't know how, anyone can hang those first 2 goals that really set the tone on Hellebuyck. I mean, they were both absolutely brilliant plays by Buchnevich.
And crazy bounce, right? It goes off Snuggerud first, right? I mean, the people that are saying it's a fluke, the fluke is not skate to stick. The fluke is that Fowler's shot hits Snuggerud in either the stomach or the pants and bounces right to him. Like that is what happened. Yeah, but the Jets had plenty of their own bounces in the series. It evens out.
Well, the one that was really self-inflicted was the 4th goal. And after David Gustafsson had that, how did you see that? Is that just all on Hellebuyck? Did the defense have a role for basically doing nothing to the 2 Blues forecheckers that came on him? Listen, I've been the biggest vocal supporter of the improvement of Hellebuyck playing the puck. There have been in recent games some signs of the shock collar era, if you will. Break that one down. Where did it go wrong for the Jets?
Big thing for me, and it's Sean brought it up on the show yesterday. It's vintage Vegas 2018. It's Jets get a power play goal from line A, and 14 seconds later, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare forces the turnover on Hellebuyck, finds Noshik in front of the net, and that exhale that the Jets had, the whole looks like the series will start going their way, was taken off the board immediately. So that's the similarity. To me, Huss, I would say it this way. It's obviously a mistake by Hellebuyck. I'm trying to get into Hellebuyck's mind. This is what I came up with on the show, and I've slept on it, and I feel the same way. The biggest issue for the Jets yesterday was zone exits and completed breakout passes. I think Hellebuyck got a little bit over anxious and thought, my D aren't necessarily, and he would never say this publicly, but he has to be thinking, I've got to make a play here to make life easier on the defense because we haven't been good enough on the zone exits. But as you mentioned, in today's era where you can't really interfere, there needed to be a little bit of subtle interference so that the pressure wasn't right on Hellebuyck and that the turnover occurred. So yes, Hellebuyck wears the majority of the blame for the turnover itself. But for the people saying stay in your crease, no. Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer are two of the best guys in the NHL at handling pucks. What have we seen in this series at various points? They have disrupted the Jets' ability to get on the forecheck and create chaos, which is such a critical component to the way they generate 5-on-5 offense. Hellebuyck has helped do the same to the Blues in a lot of areas, but that was an overhandling special that ended up in the back of the net, and it was the timing, Huss. We're talking about timely saves. That timing is so critical because, the Jets have the goal that's, goal, non-goal that doesn't get counted. Then they get a fourth line goal with incredible hustle by Jared Anderson-Dolan going wide on Tyler Tucker. They get Jake Neighbors over pursuing Gustafsson to get wide open. Anytime a fourth line delivers another goal, and the Jets' fourth line hustles had two in this series, both beauties, it's such a letdown after giving up a goal in the manner of which that they did. And again, I'm not saying that's not the reason why. I am saying that's not the reason why they lost either, but it certainly derailed the comeback. It was a definite air out of the balloon situation for the Jets because they just generated something for the first time in the game and scored. And then less than a minute later, the deficit is back to 3. And, they're probably wondering, how do you get back in it? Again, they're not thinking that at the time, but their job and task got awfully more difficult with the blunder that occurred.
Ken, allow me to put on my grab the glass half full.
Sure.
And throw this here. Given the situation, having won the first 2 games at home, losing game 3, is it better for at least this team to just get whooped the way they did last night? Or if they lost a real heartbreaker, say in overtime or something like that? Part of me thinks that being able to, and we've seen it all year long, when the Jets have stunk, they've come back as a completely different team consistently throughout the year. This one, I think, was just so bad on so many levels. I would be really surprised if we saw anything remotely like this performance on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I would just say this, Huss. The way the Jets have played all year is that they rebound, and no matter if they lose a heartbreaker or they get blown out, which is such a rarity this year, to me it makes no difference. And I like the way that Josh Morrissey handled it, very calm, composed manner. The facts are, if there's an emotional level of disappointment, whether it is an overtime winner, a bad luck goal, or getting your behind kicked. But yeah, to your point, every time the Jets have sort of had a rare no-show, their responses have been impressive. But I would also counter too, Huss, if they had lost 2-1 in overtime, I would expect them to respond in kind just based on how they've responded. They've earned the benefit of the doubt based on the body of work. Now, I get it for the folks say, well, that doesn't apply to the playoffs. I mean, you can think that if you want, but us, we can't say, well, they've spent all year looking and feeling different, and then all of a sudden a blowout loss arrives and you toss all of that goodwill or whatever out the window. That's just not a very good way to be living. I'm just feel how you feel, folks, by all means. But the context of the equation is important in this case. Again, if you think the Jets are just going to roll, like the Jets aren't packing their bags and saying, well, we didn't sweep the series, we're out of here. Nice try. Our cup chances have vanished into the ether. Come on. Like this team has worked so hard to get to this point. They are still in control of the series. It's not a cakewalk. It was never going to be one. They are up 2-1 with a chance to put a team on the brink of elimination. And if they don't, then it's a best of 3 for the best team in the NHL with home ice advantage. So no matter how Sunday goes, the Jets have put themselves in a good spot. They're not going to panic. They're not going to abandon the structure, and they're not going to allow the walls and roof to cave in just because it's happened twice in the last couple of springs. It's just not going to happen. They could lose the series, but they're not going to give up without a fight, and they're not going to abandon their structure. They're not going to try to pretend to be a different team. This is who they are. But now it's up to them to show it.
What are you going to take from the first 5 minutes? How important is the first 5, like the period until the first TV timeout in game number 4, considering what we saw last night?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Blues came out, physical, guns ablaze, and everything else. Caused a backhand turnover by Pionk with the ferocious and relentless forecheck. I expect the Jets to be better. I do think that their start in game 2 was actually pretty good. Yes, Hellebuyck had to make a couple saves on Thomas. That's accurate. But the Jets didn't sleepwalk into game 2, Huss, the way they did in game 1 and the way they did in game 3. So, yes, they want to start better. I personally see the Lowry line starting. And, Huss, I wonder, I'm curious if Scott Arniel may go back to Niederreiter, Lowry, and Appleton. Though the other thing we saw late in the game or in the third period when trying to shake things up, we saw Niederreiter, Perfetti, and Lowry in an effort to try to get the offense going. Like I said, Jets' fourth line has 2 goals. They're doing their part. Top line has 2 GWGs and has 5 goals. They're doing their part.
Is it time to get more Morgan Barron?
Well, he's playing very well, Huss, but I think that it's a move that you would consider, yes. But for me, the Jets need more Vlad Nemesnikov. Vlad is playing incredibly hard, Huss. But again, it's not all about the numbers. He is a value-added player. But this is also a fact. The Jets' second-line center has 1 goal in his last 32 outings and 16 without a goal. That's not second-line production. And we can argue all we want that Lowry's the second-line center based on role and responsibility. But just like last year, when Casey Middlestat took the Sean Monahan line to the cleaners, the Jets need more from their second line. They also need more in terms of the offensive generation from the Lowry line. All that line is mustered so far, although they've done a great job in their matchup game for the most part. They just have the one empty netter from Lowry. This is Lowry's time where he shines. We've seen it against Vegas. We've seen it all throughout his career. Career highs for Lowry, and I'm not just saying it's him, but his line needs to generate more Huss as well. And that's part of the formula for the Jets to take the next step. But again, this is not 1 or 2 guys, but they need more production from more people until they get some of those other people back. And I know you didn't ask me, Huss, but I'm sticking with my theory that I don't think we see Gabe Vilardi before game 5. Now, hey, if he's in a non-contact tomorrow at the skate, maybe he's an option. To me, I think with the extra 2 days off in between games, I don't expect him before game 5. But again, maybe he's got the miraculous healing water going on and the treatments. Maybe he's sleeping in the hyperbaric chamber. We don't have access to this information. But to me, I think he's still going to be another game before he's an eligible participant. But that's the beauty of the playoffs, Huss. And it's the beauty of trudging our way out to the practice rink on a Saturday afternoon. The binoculars will be out, and we will be looking to see if that yellow becomes a white and what it means for the lineup. Because I know you've been asking everybody this week, where does he slot in?
And what do you think? Like, if he comes back in,
yeah, I mean, big pick, long term
on that line number 2, potentially with Vlad and Perfetti, which allows you to put the Lowry line back together. And I think that Brandon Tanev with Morgan Barron takes that line to another level as well, as far as just the energy and efficientness of playing with the puck in the other team's end.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Vilardi's going to be back with Scheifele and Connor at some point. Whether it's right away, that I'm not sure. Last year when he came back from injury, they eased him back in a little bit. So where he lines up, I'm not sure. But ultimately, he will be going to the top line. And then Iafallo will be on the human eraser late in games when they're protecting leads. But the other issue, when you've missed as much time as Vilardi will have missed in being injured on March 23rd, it's hard to put him back on the first line all the time because that line plays 22 minutes. So that's the other thing they're going to have to monitor minutes in this scenario as well. But Jets power play definitely could use Velarde's hands. Though I would also say, and again, until Ehlers works his way into being an option, having Vilardi and Perfetti on the power play at the same time, I think is something that, excuse me, I'd like to see, because Perfetti's confidence at 5-on-5 and on the power play continues to be on the rise.
No doubt. What can they do to get better results from the PK?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so strange, right? I mean, there have been times where they are on their pressure points, but there just have been too many, seams that have been available. And, what we know about Hellebuyck, if he knows where it's coming from, he usually makes the save. I think yesterday is a great example. Robert Thomas, creating himself a little bit of space to find the high tip. That was one of the wrinkles that we saw yesterday. So the Jets have done a good job of taking away the net front options, box outs, clearing the front of the net, all of those things. There hasn't been a lot of traffic, but the Jets just aren't quite in sync. They're not getting enough clears us, and they need to do a better job in all facets of the pressure points on the PK in order to start changing those results. Because right now, the Blues are feasting with the man advantage. There's no other way to put it.